And to think such tiny little flowers and such tiny little plants can fill a whole room like this with its beautiful scent. A windstorm brought us a windfall. Okay, literally a windfall. But enough with the dad jokes. These amazing little orchids came tumbling out of the dead branches that broke off during the windstorm, and we had to save them from our local park before the tractor with its mower came driving over the top of them. So we got all these amazing little sticks with these cute little orchids on them, and you can see that they're in flower already. These are Mystacidium venosum, very similar to Mystacidium capensa that you might all know, but this is sort of its smaller brother. And some of the differences you'll notice between this venosum and capensa is that, for one, it's a smaller orchid altogether. It's got slightly smaller leaves. They're not going to grow as long. Also, their spur on the flower is shorter than what you would get in the capense. But I'm getting all excited here without even telling you what these orchids are all about and how to look after them. These are actually really, really easy orchids to look after. They are one of these epiphytic ones that really don't like to be in a media. So similar to those strap-leafed vandas of yours, they don't want to have their roots stuck inside a media where they're not going to get any air movement. They really need to get wet and dry out almost immediately. If they stay wet and soggy for too long, this is where you're going to cause problems with this orchid. It's probably about the only way that you can really cause serious problems with this orchid. They are very adaptable to the temperature ranges that they'll grow in. They are from the east coast of South Africa. This is where they're indigenous to, so they're actually endemic to our area that we live in. And that makes them a cool subtropical orchid. And they adapt to a wide variety of different temperatures, anything from winter lows that we can get down to around 2 degrees Celsius. But generally speaking, evening temperatures that would be generally advisable to keep them in is around 10 degrees Celsius during the evening, during those cold winter nights, which is around, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way up to those hot summer temperatures where they can take temperatures in the range of even up to 35 degrees Celsius. Just to be safe, if you don't have those sort of temperatures, don't worry. They generally prefer temperatures in the ranges of about 28, 29 as their maximum heat, but they will take those hotter temperatures without a problem. Their summertime temperatures generally, as I said, can range anywhere from those 35 degrees Celsius days all the way down to around 15 or 16 degree temperature nights. Remember, this is Celsius. So those summer temperature ranges, they can take anything from those boiling hot 35 degrees Celsius days all the way down to around 15 or 16 degrees during the night. But generally speaking, it's sort of recommended to keep them around the 25, 29 degrees Celsius range during the day, and then drop their temperatures down to around that 15 or 16 degrees at night, giving you around a 10 or 15 degree temperature range between your day and night temperatures during summer. In winter, the temperatures, generally you're looking at around 25 to 22 degrees Celsius, which is 77 degrees Fahrenheit, down to around 10 or 12 degrees Celsius in the evening, which is approximately 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And that also gives you a temperature range of around 10 to 15 degrees. But they will accept those cooler evening temperatures like I told you. Our temperatures here get down to around 2 degrees Celsius at times in winter during the evenings, and they don't seem to mind at all. So even if you're ranging between 5 and 8 degrees Celsius, they still cope extremely well. Especially where these ones were growing, they were growing down in the valley, right next to a stream, and the temperatures at night, they get really chilly. We can see how well these are growing and still flowering. But remember, when talking about those hot summer temperatures, the humidity levels have to be high. You need to give them around 70 to 75% humidity levels during those hot summer days. In winter, they prefer humidity levels of around 65%, and this is quite easily achievable in the home, making these an excellent addition to anyone's collection, because not only one are they such tiny little orchids, you can fit them into any little space, but they're so easy really to grow compared to some of the others. And I nearly forgot to tell you, when you have those higher temperatures, that's during those summer periods, that's when those trees have fuller canopy of leaves, and generally these orchids are getting slightly less sun. As winter starts moving around, so the canopy of the leaves in the trees becomes thinner, these orchids are exposed to more light, and that's one of the reasons that they're able to withstand those higher temperatures, is because of the higher shaded conditions. And these orchids are often grown right near the tips of those branches. You can see how thin these branches are, so you know that they're growing high up in the tree. So they're actually getting lots and lots and lots of light. And if you do have any of these Mystacidiums and perhaps they're not flowering for you, this is probably the reason why. If it's Mystacidium venosum, which is one of the winter flowering Mystacidiums, often confused with the capense, but the capense is a summer flowering, the venosum is a winter flowering. And then of course those other details I told you about, the size of the plant and the spur on the flower. So how do we get our venosum to flower if we're struggling to? The best way is to ensure higher light conditions during those winter periods than what you're giving them in the summer periods. So try and, even if you give them a little bit of direct sun during the morning or the afternoon, but not that full midday sun. They don't really particularly want that, unless of course you're in more temperate regions where your sun levels are going to be a lot lower than what they are here in the subtropics. Then perhaps you can give them slightly longer hours of direct sun. And then also remember, during that winter period, one of the things that helps initiate the flowering, other than the slightly shorter number of daylight hours, the stronger light conditions, the temperature changes, those day-night temperature fluctuations as the temperature starts to really drop, but also that drier period. As we head out of autumn coming into winter, already our rains have stopped coming. We haven't had rain for probably a month or more now, and this is what helps initiate the blooms on these little Mystacidiums, is that, this Mystacidium venosum anyway, is that drier spell. It doesn't mean that they want to dry out completely, especially if your humidity levels aren't compatible. If you've got slightly lower humidity levels, then you may want to give this a little bit of a spritz and a misting occasionally during that period, just to stop it from dehydrating too far. But that winter rest is often necessary for these flowers to then be produced. Also feeding. Feeding during winter, you can reduce or stop your feeding altogether and then wait for that spring, wait for active growth to begin again, because these little babies can even flower if there are no leaves on this plant at all. They can still produce their blooms. So you may find as it heads to winter, you may start losing some of the leaves off your orchid, and you may have only 1 or 2 leaves left or none at all. And then still you get those beautiful flower spikes popping out off the bottom of them. So don't always throw your orchid away as a write-off if you see it's lost all its leaves, because often there's still a lot of growth potential left in it. It's just relaxing, just making sure that all that transpiration doesn't happen from the leaves, keeping that energy in that stem and that root so that it's ready to take off again. And with these babies being such small little orchids, they still do grow relatively vigorously for the size that they are, if you consider how small they are. They can be given a higher nitrogen feed during that active growth phase, the same as what you may do for your dendrobiums, and they'll really appreciate it. Often that's what will then supply them with enough energy during that high growth period to produce all those beautiful flowers. And remember, the darker conditions you keep them under, slightly longer your leaves may be, and the slightly longer the little spur on the flower may become as well. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a capense that you have. It just means that you've been keeping your venosum in slightly darker conditions. You may not get as many flowers as you do in the brighter light, but you'll get slightly longer spurs. And of course, slightly darker green leaves, as generally happens as the plant tries to produce more energy by producing more chlorophyll in darker areas. But a darker area for your Mystacidium is probably the same light as what you'd use for an Oncidium. So they really do like high light conditions. Okay, let's see if I've missed out anything. We've done the temperature ranges, we've done the humidity levels, we've done the feeding and how to get it to flower, the watering. As I was saying, in wintertime, water very sparingly, perhaps just a light misting on those roots during winter if your humidity levels are too low, or if you feel your plant is beginning to dehydrate slightly. In the areas that it grows naturally, like I was suggesting, this was growing in that valley next to the river, those temperatures drop quite severely, and you will get mist through those trees in the evening and dew forming on your plants. So that light misting occasionally through that period should be okay, as long as you're not overwatering. Remember, these are always going to be better on mounts. If you are not able to keep your watering regime high enough for a mounted orchid and you want to pot it, put it in a hanging basket, perhaps with something like cork chunks, largish cork chunks, or charcoal. And that's basically what you can also do with those strap-leafed vandas as well. If you're battling to keep your moisture levels high enough for them, you need that good air movement through that media, and you don't want water sitting in and around those roots because these roots rot incredibly easily. And during that spring, summer, fast-growing season, you can water them really frequently. And even if you've got them on a mount, you can dunk them occasionally once a week or something, just to make sure that they're getting enough of that moisture. Because here, during those seasons in spring, we can have rain for 3 or 4 days, even a whole week solidly every single day, and these still grow beautifully. But remember that air movement. Air movement is the most important thing to allow these roots to be able to at least dry off slightly as you are giving it all that moisture. Because if you're keeping them wet and soggy, your whole plant is going to fall in on itself. This is the biggest problem for Mystacidiums, is overwatering. I know people want to overwater and baby these plants because they are such small little plants that you think they're going to need more and more and more. So that's not necessarily the truth. They do grow out in the wild without any care at all, and they do incredibly well. So we mustn't think that we know better and that the plant itself isn't going to be able to look after itself. Because remember, these Mystacidium venosum are very adaptable little orchids. One thing you really need to know about them is their scent. The most beautiful, sweet, almost rose-like scent that they give off, even now during the day, which is not their particular time that they really produce the scent. That's in the early evenings when they really let off that major amount of scent, and that attracts a hawk moth that then pollinates it. But the scent of this is really a special sweet surprise. And to think such tiny little flowers on such tiny little plants can fill a whole room like this with its beautiful scent. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of what capensis looks up against venosum, here we have one that had come out of our tree that crushed our Buddha. We've got it in one of the previous videos. This is Mystacidium capensis, and for one, you can see how big it's grown already, how much bigger it is and larger it is than the other plants that we have here, and also the fact that it's not flowering at the moment. These flower spikes are slightly longer and they produce more flowers, slightly bigger flowers with a longer spur. But there's the Mystacidium capensis still recovering from falling out of the tree. Or should I say the tree falling out of the ground and falling on top of it. But there we go, another orchid to add to your wish list, because this is a definite must-have. A winter flowering orchid, beautiful, beautiful white flowers, so crystal clear white, and that amazing perfume. Easy to grow, easy to look after. So as Nelson might say, a no-brainer. And if you have any other queries about these Mystacidiums, drop them in the comments box down below. I'll be sure to answer back to you as soon as possible. Also, remember, Ed posts up a lot of orchid-related content in that Buy Me a Coffee link there all the time, and it's available for everyone. Also, don't be shy, sign up, become a member, and grow like a pro. And thank you for watching. If you find any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell, bing bong, excuse me, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.